Wow.
Pode-se dizer que eram os dias de faroeste nas corridas de carro. E apesar de o automóvel ter representado um grande salto tecnológico, praticamente não se pensava na segurança do piloto.
Today's drivers are protected by Nomex fire suits and carbon fiber helmets, and the cars themselves are built to protect the driver in the event of a crash. But in the early days of racing, many men wore only goggles, and the cars themselves didn't even have seat belts. But still, these brave men tore across the city streets, country roads, and racetracks with reckless abandon.
Pilotos como Ascari, Moss, Fangio e o grande Tadzio Nuvolari arriscavam a vida sempre que sentavam ao volante.
These were, ballsy men. They were tough. They were purist. And Ferrari was a purist. We're not here to talk about safety. Racing's a dangerous sport. And, people are going to die, and this is what we have to do.
Enzo Ferrari também gostava de correr riscos. Em 1920, com 22 anos, ele começou a pilotar para a Alfa Romeo. Logo estava gerenciando a equipe e formando um quadro de pilotos. Os europeus acabaram desenvolvendo uma série de regras restringindo o tamanho do motor e a extensão da pista, batizando as corridas de Grand Prix. Mas as regras se concentraram mais na disputa esportiva que na segurança dos pilotos.
Well, there was a certain romance associated with the danger, and there was a heroic aspect as far as I was concerned personally. It was so demanding and it was so unforgiving that if you went out there after having spent all night in a bar, most of the ones that were burning the candle at both ends were gone pretty quickly.
Como os pilotos não tinham cintos de segurança, barras de proteção ou recursos contra o fogo, um acidente fatal chegava a ser visão comum. Hoje, a Fórmula 1 não é totalmente segura, mas pelo menos é sã.
A lot of the technology behind Formula One race cars has changed since 1951. So to get an idea about those differences, I'm here with Robert Prevo, the owner of the American Racing Academy. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Hunter. How are you?
Safety is a huge concern.
Huge concern. One of the things that used to kill a lot of drivers was that in crashes, you'd see the fuel tanks explode.
Okay.
So we fix that by essentially creating an envelope around the fuel cell that's a rubber bladder, if you will, that allows the fuel to be contained in the case of an accident. Well, essentially, the most important aspect of the inside of the cockpit are the seat belts. The seat belts are there designed to hold the driver firmly in place, so you focus all of his attentions on driving the car.
I know these experience a lot of G-forces, and I love G-forces. Any chance of hopping in the cockpit and taking her for a spin?
Got a driver's license?
Yeah, and I think I have a few tickets, but that's a good thing in this sport, right?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Mas eles não dão as chaves de um Fórmula 1 assim tão facilmente. Primeiro, não há chaves. A partida destes carros é dada por um motor externo. Antes de você começar a pensar em levar esta máquina à pista, precisa completar o curso de direção da academia.
All right, guys, want to officially welcome everyone to the American Racing Academy.
All right, ready to roll.
Eu começo o dia dirigindo um carro Fórmula 2000. É um Fórmula 1 em escala menor, com cerca de 1/5 da potência de seu irmão mais velho.
You're on it now, baby. Good job.
Ele faz de 0 a 160 km por hora em 6,4 segundos e alcança 234 km horários.
Just use all your senses. Pay attention to where you're looking, what you're feeling, how many G's you're feeling, what your feet are doing, what are your hands doing, all that. I guess the Navy taught you a little bit about that, huh? Oh yeah, just gotta be comfortable with it.
Quando eu finalmente entro em um Fórmula 1, percebo que esta será uma experiência totalmente diferente. E estou certo. Dirigir este carro exige concentração absoluta e a aceleração faz seu corpo grudar no banco, como em um jato que está decolando de um porta-aviões. Um motor de Fórmula 1 moderno pode girar a mais de 18.000 RPMs e desenvolve bem mais de 700 cavalos vapor. É quase 2 vezes a potência de um F1 dos anos 50 e o suficiente para levar o carro a mais de 330 km horários.
Woohoo!
Oh, man. This is a rocket ship on wheels, man. So, you guys need a driver?
O momento. Nos anos 50, a popularidade das corridas de Grand Prix transformou a ideia em uma intensa e cara competição internacional.
In those days, you know, the Germans wanted to win for German pride, the Italians, nationalism, you know, and all that. And there was an enormous amount of pressure on a driver to perform. It's kind of like the Olympics.
Mi sembra stranissima questa decisione.
Mas nem mesmo as Olimpíadas envolvem a rivalidade que começou a ser criada em 1938, quando a Alfa Romeo transferiu Enzo Ferrari de diretor de operações esportivas para um cargo mais administrativo. A decisão deixou Ferrari furioso e ele pediu demissão. Antes que Ferrari pudesse montar sua própria equipe, a Segunda Guerra Mundial paralisou as corridas de Grand Prix. Em toda a Europa, fábricas automotoras foram convertidas para produzir armas, peças e suprimentos militares.
Auto racing reemerges in Europe with 4 Grand Prix races held in 1946. Countries that were bombing each other just a year ago are now battling for the lead on the track. In Italy, there's a new automaker entering the fray. After being replaced as the manager of Alfa Romeo's racing division, Enzo Ferrari has a score to settle, and he's built his own factory to do it.
1946, Maranello, Itália. Scuderia Ferrari, antes uma divisão dos carros de corrida da Alfa Romeo, passou a ser a denominação da fábrica e da equipe de corrida de Enzo Ferrari. Nela, alguns dos maiores projetistas e mecânicos da Itália trabalhavam para realizar o sonho de Ferrari de construir o carro mais veloz do mundo, ou, pelo menos, veloz o bastante para derrotar um Alfa Romeo.
Ferrari wanted to beat Alfa Romeo. They didn't want to beat Alfa Romeo. They wanted to beat Alfa Romeo decisively. But the problem is, Alfa had a huge head start and Ferrari was perpetually playing catch-up.
Mas a guerra foi especialmente desastrosa para a Alfa Romeo. Pesados bombardeios aliados provocaram enormes danos em suas fábricas. Só alguns Alfetta 158 sobreviveram.
Alfa had hidden their cars and basically rolled out their pre-war racing team. Little development, you know, maybe some better tires, but they had the dominant car that still survived because there was virtually nothing left of Mercedes or of Auto Union. So when the racing started again in the late 40s, Alfa Romeo had the tool to win the races, already pre-developed, just mothballed for a few years, ready to go.
Em 1947, a escuderia lançou a primeira Ferrari pura, a tipo 125, com motor de 1,5 litros. Era o início do caso de amor de Enzo Ferrari com o motor de 12 cilindros.
At the time, the use of a V12 engine was a very advanced concept. Small motor designed by engineer Colombo, supercharged. The small motor created a great deal of horsepower, but not a lot of torque.
Ao longo dos anos seguintes, Ferrari desenvolveu melhor o 125, vencendo diversas corridas regionais.
But Ferrari has his eye on the grand prize of racing, the 24 hours of the Le Mans Endurance Race. The 1949 event will be Ferrari's debut on the international stage. But his rival, Alfa Romeo, is now focused on rebuilding from the war and won't be there.
Le Mans, for me, is the best race in the world. And it's probably, next to Spa, the fastest track in the world. I mean, you had, at that time, before they put the chicane in, you had a straight that was literally 3.5 miles long. It's a 24-hour race. The weather is not good there, but, you know, that's the magic.
Cada equipe tinha 2 pilotos que se revezavam ao volante. Ferrari contava com o piloto britânico Lord Selsdon e com o americano Luigi Chinetti. Eles pilotariam uma tipo 125 modificada de motor 12 cilindros maior e mais potente. Antes mesmo de a prova começar, a equipe Ferrari teve problemas. Lord Selsdon se adoentou e não podia dirigir. Se a Ferrari quisesse competir, Luigi Chinetti teria de fazer o impossível, pilotar sem parar por 24 horas. Junho de 1949, um novo fabricante de carros iniciava uma missão: desbancar sua rival, a gigante italiana Alfa Romeo. O homem era Enzo Ferrari. O momento, uma disputa definitiva com a Alfa Romeo, que aconteceria 2 anos depois. A máquina, a Ferrari 375, que ainda seria construída. O objetivo imediato de Ferrari era vencer as 24 horas de Le Mans de 1949. Mas ele iniciaria a prova com uma grande desvantagem. Ao que parecia, seu piloto Luigi Chinetti teria de dirigir sozinho durante as 24 horas.
This is a killer in the real sense of a race because there's fog, it's obviously at night, it's a big long road circuit with like a 3-mile straight. And so you've got very high-speed cars overtaking a slow car at night with poor lights. So there's huge accidents and many people killed.
Chinetti pilotou a Ferrari bravamente durante o dia todo e à noite também. Milagrosamente, ele cruzou a linha de chegada em primeiro lugar após pilotar durante 23 horas e meia. Entregou o volante para Selsdon por apenas 30 minutos.
All those endurance races are something that the automobile manufacturers love to say, look, we did it, we went up against the best and we won and prevailed, and it says something about the machine that's pretty special.
Em parceria, Chinetti e Ferrari capitalizaram sobre a vitória. Clientes endinheirados, sobretudo americanos, acotovelaram-se para comprar o carro que venceu Le Mans.
And since the car looked much like a street car, it was very akin to the road cars and provided a tremendous stepping stone for Ferrari to be able to sell the cars on the road, claiming that they were indeed the equal of the world's best.
Ferrari's venture into consumer sales brings the name even more recognition. But unlike other companies that race for the sole purpose of selling cars, Ferrari sells his cars so that he can support his racing. For Enzo, everything revolves around the sport he fell in love with as a child.
O homem. Enzo Anselmo Ferrari nasceu em 18 de fevereiro de 1898 em Modena, Itália. Em 1908, Enzo, aos 10 anos, foi levado pelo pai a uma corrida de carros em Bolonha. O menino ficou fascinado e decidiu ser piloto de corridas quando crescesse.
He was bitten by the bug. He kind of caught the fever and he loved the spectacle of auto racing and the speed.
Quando jovem, Enzo passou a Primeira Guerra Mundial cuidando de cavalos. Mas sua vida estava prestes a entrar na pista rápida. Ele se mudou para Turim, centro da fabricação de carros na Itália, e passou a frequentar os restaurantes preferidos do público de corridas. Enzo usava seu carisma para fazer contatos valiosos.
Enzo Ferrari, when he really got interested in racing, wanted to work for Fiat. But he wasn't able to secure a good job there. But through some of his connections, he worked for a company that's no longer in business called CMN.
Em 1919, Enzo participou de sua primeira prova, a Parma Podio di Baceto.
And luckily for Enzo, he actually did pretty well, coming in 4th. He went on to rouse the interests of the very dominant Alfa Romeo company and got a ride there. He continued to drive for Alfa throughout the 20s. And I think did his last race right around 1931.
Em 1923, após vencer uma prova para a Alfa Romeo, Enzo Ferrari foi abordado pelos pais de um lendário asa italiano da Primeira Guerra, Francesco Baracca. E apesar de Baracca ter sido morto em um combate aéreo, seus pais sugeriram que o desenho do cavalo rampante pintado em seu avião traria boa sorte à Ferrari.
He also added the yellow background of Modena, the color of Modena, to the symbol, and that's basically the beginning of the legend of Ferrari.
A carreira de Enzo nas pistas ia razoavelmente bem até que ele deixou de aparecer no dia de uma prova importante. Alguns especulam que Enzo teria sofrido um colapso nervoso. Para outros, ele se adoentou. De qualquer modo, Enzo Ferrari nunca voltaria a competir como piloto no circuito internacional.
I think what happened, he just got intimidated and overwhelmed. And I think Nicola Romeo realized that. Even though, I mean, he was good, but, you know, certainly not top tier. Nicola started to realize that his real talents lied in organization and management. That's what he was good at. He had a talent for picking the right people for the right job, and he also had a talent, an uncanny talent to be at the right place at the right time.
A confiança e o poder de convencimento de Ferrari permitiram que ele atraísse os melhores engenheiros automotivos de seus concorrentes na Itália. Ao longo dos anos, ele recrutou projetistas brilhantes como Vittorio Jano, Gioacchino Colombo e Aurelio Lampredi.
He's a marketing and management genius. He had the talent to recognize people that had mechanical ability, and not necessarily college graduates. A lot of the development of the cars were craftsmen, if you will, that he recognized had a genius mechanical talent.
Aos 31 anos, Ferrari orquestrou uma cooperação entre a Alfa Romeo e um grupo de entusiastas milionários. Em 1929, abriu as portas da escuderia Ferrari em Modena, sua cidade natal. Lá preparava os carros da Alfa Romeo para a competição.
He was Machiavellian and justified. He would do anything and do anything to get what he wanted, but he had the talent to know what he needed and how to get it done. That was his genius, and which created the legend.
Em 1932, a esposa de Ferrari, Laura, deu à luz seu primeiro filho, Dino. Enzo acabou tendo outro filho, Piero, fora do casamento e levava uma vida muito reservada com sua amante, Lina Lardi.
The best paparazzis in the world are in Italy and England. So there's dirt there, and I'm sure they were looking for it, and they felt like, hey, we're the press, you have to answer to us. Well, Enzo Ferrari didn't look at it, it's none of your business. Ask me about my race cars.
Ferrari exigia a perfeição e comprometimento total de seus empregados, recorrendo a táticas agressivas para motivá-los.
Non è possibile essere pronto in una settimana, non è possibile.
Però non avete capito, io questo lavoro lo voglio terminato per sabato. Ma solo non ci sono, non ci sono scuse. Voglio che questo lavoro venga fatto per sabato. Io questa gara la voglio vincere. Se no me la faccio fare da Francesco, saresti in grado di farlo? Ce la fai o non ce la fai? Okay?
No one did psychological warfare better than Enzo Ferrari. He was absolutely brutal. Play all kinds of psychological games. There was already enough pressure, but really just to push him over the end, to really push him.
Em seu primeiro ano, a escuderia Ferrari competiu em 22 eventos, colecionando 8 vitórias para a Alfa Romeo. E Ferrari não instigava seus pilotos apenas contra os pilotos das equipes rivais, mas também entre si.
Enzo, having been a driver himself in his earlier days, he had pretty good insight into what sort of motivation would work with drivers. If he wanted them to reach down to the bottom of the barrel and scrape some more, he loved drivers that would do that.
Roberto, bello, non va bene così, ok? Ce la devi mettere tutta. No, ce la devi mettere tutta, bello mio. Ok, no. Devi dare più gas, Io questa gara la voglio vincere.
Of course, he always pushed the drivers to go to the max. Better you blow it up than go too slow. And some drivers stood the test and some didn't, and some got killed.
Em 1938, quando a Alfa Romeo decidiu retomar o controle das operações esportivas, Ferrari pediu demissão, levou seus leais projetistas consigo e criou sua própria fábrica.
He was just itching to go racing and do it under his own name, but he had signed a non-compete, which forbade him to use his trademark Prancing Horse or the Ferrari name with anything associated with racing for a period of 4 to 5 years.
Durante a guerra, a fábrica da Ferrari produziu peças e máquinas para o exército italiano. Após as instalações em Modena terem sido bombardeadas, um Ferrari mais experiente transferiu a fábrica para Maranello e começou tudo de novo.
Buongiorno ragazzi, buongiorno! Come va? Conoscete Dino, no? Ecco, Dino è qua con noi.
Ferrari had nothing. Ferrari was starting from ground zero, but he did have the advantage of having the experience of running Scuderia Ferrari. He did have all of the contacts, and he did have Colombo, who came back with him to work together to design an all-new car to go heads up against his competitor, his nemesis, Alfa Romeo.
Va bene? Arrivederci allora. Buon lavoro.
By 1949, following his win at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, Ferrari is gaining momentum. The 1950 Grand Prix at Monaco is his next chance to settle the score with Alfa Romeo and achieve the kind of recognition he needs to build his own business.
When they get to Monaco, in 1950. Alfa is the giant, Ferrari is the giant killer. Ferrari aspires to beat Alfa at Monaco. If you win at Monaco, that's something that everyone remembers.
Em 1950, as provas de Grand Prix foram reorganizadas com novas regras em um campeonato chamado Fórmula 1. As regras restringiam os carros a motores de 1,5 litro com compressores ou a motores de 4,5 litros aspirados normalmente. Em Mônaco, a Ferrari usaria 3 tipos 125 com a mesma espécie de motor da Alfa Romeo.
Both the Alfa 158 and the Ferrari 125 are supercharged, and supercharged is much like turbocharging. Basically, you have a pump that pumps a tremendous amount of air into the engine. The more fuel and air you can get into the engine, the more horsepower.
21 de maio de 1950. As ruas de Mônaco foram tomadas pelos fãs e por celebridades. Ao meio-dia, deu-se a largada e o principal piloto da Ferrari, Alberto Ascari, assumiu a dianteira. Parecia que aquele seria o dia de Ferrari conseguir sua vingança. 21 de maio de 1950. O Grande Prêmio de Mônaco se transformou em uma disputa entre o principal piloto da Ferrari, Alberto Ascari, e Juan Manuel Fangio, que liderava a prova em um Alfa Romeo.
After World War II, Alfa came back with a vengeance. They still had talented engineers. They had done a lot of research and development in the pre-war era, and they were really masters at developing these cars. So here comes the fledgling Ferrari company, and they're trying to beat the old master.
A essa altura, Enzo Ferrari já não comparecia em pessoa às provas, mas monitorava o evento via rádio e telefone. Nas ruas de Mônaco, Ascari tentou roubar a liderança de Fangio, então a carga de combustível da Ferrari seria de 72 quilos. Já os Alfa Romeos, que levavam 250 litros de combustível, carregavam quase 200 quilos de gasolina.
Weight is the enemy of a racing car. To build the best racing car, one of your primary objectives is to make it as light as possible. Fuel is one of the heaviest aspects of weight in a race car. The more fuel you have to carry on board, the bigger a problem it becomes.
Em 1951, Enzo queria testar definitivamente a 375 e estava de olho no prestigiado Grande Prêmio da Inglaterra. O momento.
Ferrari had been chasing Alfa Romeo for 5 years through 1947, 48, 49, 50, 51, and it was finally the day where Ferrari could win.
Havia dois grandes pilotos correndo pela Alfa, o lendário argentino Juan Manuel Fangio, considerado por muitos o maior piloto da história, e o italiano Nino Farina, o primeiro campeão mundial de Fórmula 1. Pela Ferrari, competiriam o novato argentino José Froilán González e o astro Alberto Ascari.
Ascari was the team leader for Ferrari. Gonzalez was the new guy. But Fangio was the master. Fangio was the man to beat.
Mas o homem que tinha mais em jogo na corrida, Enzo Ferrari, sequer estaria lá. Ele ficaria em sua fábrica em Maranello, onde novamente ouviria a corrida pelo rádio.
Although Ferrari doesn't attend his races, he has total control over every aspect of his company. He handpicks his drivers and oversees every detail during the building of the cars. He believes, though, that by the time the race begins, it's out of his hands. Now it's up to his team to bring home the win.
There's a great deal of tension. Everyone's excited, the adrenaline's flowing, the starter drops the flag. All four men on the front row throw in a tremendous amount of throttle, dump the clutch, and immediately smoke the tires.
Mas os favoritos da prova, inclusive as Ferraris, logo sentiram a pressão dos outros carros. O sonho de Enzo Ferrari de derrotar a Alfa em Silverstone podia ser arruinado já no início da prova. 14 de julho de 1951, Silverstone, Inglaterra. A caminhada de um homem para superar os rivais e chegar ao topo do mundo da Fórmula 1 parecia estar obstruída mais uma vez. O homem era o engenhoso fabricante de carros Enzo Ferrari. No momento, o Grande Prêmio da Inglaterra de 1951. A máquina era a inovadora Ferrari 375, um carro que para Enzo era capaz de lhe dar a vitória.
Ferrari wants to beat Alfa Romeo, and he's convinced his 375s have the power to do the job. But Juan Manuel Fangio is the leader of the Grand Prix series, and his legendary driving skills have allowed him to pass faster cars before. Gonzalez is in for the race of his life.
Em Maranello, Enzo Ferrari escutava o rádio atentamente. Ficou surpreso ao ouvir que seu piloto novato, Gonçalves, assumira a liderança no início.
By the time the leaders came around, the race came around to the lap 1, when Gonzalez passed the pits, the one board was out for him, and the mechanics were on fire. They knew that Ferrari had a chance. It was only a function of everything working, and everything had to work right.
E até aquele momento, tudo estava correndo bem para a Ferrari. Mas quando Gonçalves completou a 9ª volta, um carro surgiu em seu espelho retrovisor.
It's Fangio, and he's bearing down on him. So at that point, a driver like Gonzalez has two choices. Does he watch what's going on in front of him, or does he look in the rearview mirror? Looking in the rearview mirror is the most dangerous thing you can do. So he just put his foot down and kept driving as fast as he could.
Na 25ª volta, Gonçalves fez a curva do hairpin rápido demais e atingiu os fardos de palha que circundavam a pista. Foi o bastante para permitir que Fangio recuperasse a liderança.
The cars were very, very equal, and the lap times weren't too dissimilar, so it was all going to break down to, was Enzo right? Was his 4.5 liter the right formula to use? Was he going to win?
Na 39ª volta, Gonçalves acelerou para 208 km/h e ultrapassou Fangio. Mais uma vez, o novato assumiu a liderança.
And then he sees in his mirrors Fangio. And Fangio's coming hard. And they go wheel to wheel for a few laps, and Fangio gets in front.
Cedo ou tarde, ambos os carros teriam de parar para reabastecer. A Ferrari apostava que, se Gonçalves reabastecesse mais rápido que Fangio, ele obteria a vantagem necessária para vencer. Na volta 48, Fangio fez sua parada. Ela levou 49 segundos. Gonçalves saltou à frente e conseguiu uma vantagem de 36 segundos antes que Fangio deixasse os boxes.
Dobbiamo per la corsa! Pronto, pronto!
Hai deciso che il mancato nella prima prova in duello a di Fangio?
Quando Gonçalves parou 13 voltas depois, já estava quase 1 minuto e meio à frente de Fangio.
The deciding moment in the Silverstone race is clearly when Gonzalez comes in for his pit stop. He was able to get in and change 4 tires and fuel and get out in 25 seconds, which was a phenomenal quick pit stop for that time period.
Depois de 318 quilômetros e 2 horas, 42 minutos e 18 segundos, Gonçalves cruzou a linha de chegada mais de 1 minuto à frente de Fangio.
Addio che abbiamo vinto! Vittoria nostra! Siamo tanto contenti!
A Ferrari vencera seu primeiro grande prêmio de Fórmula 1, impondo à Alfa Romeo sua primeira grande derrota desde 1939.
You have one of the youngest drivers in the Grand Prix circle, Froilan Gonzalez, making his first really big win. But you have this new company named Ferrari. Over 30 years later, he finally beat them at their own game, and in an emotional response, he exclaimed,
Ho ucciso mia madre. Abbiamo vinto.
I've killed my mother.
Felicità.
I think probably he may have felt bad. Alfa Romeo really picked him up from nowhere, and put him on the map, gave him a huge opportunity. I think he was always appreciative of that.
A 375 teve o desempenho que Ferrari esperava. O peso leve e o motor eficiente do carro acabaram sendo a fórmula vencedora. Como uma catapulta, a vitória em Silverstone alçou a Ferrari à supremacia na Fórmula 1 e relegou a Alfa Romeo aos boxes quase que permanentemente.
From this point forward, Ferrari racing cars become dominant in almost all forms of racing. They have beat Alfa Romeo, and subsequently, Alfa Romeo analyzes their position, realizes that they cannot afford to develop a new car, and folds their tent, leaving Ferrari very much in charge, dominant in Formula One.
Se a Ferrari estava com tudo na primeira metade dos anos 50, o destino estava prestes a desferir uma série de golpes em Enzo, deixando-o de joelhos. Enzo Ferrari finalmente derrotara a Alfa Romeo e estava a caminho de formar uma verdadeira dinastia de carros esportivos e de Fórmula 1. Mas a década de 50, que começou tão brilhante para a Ferrari, transformou-se em uma série de eventos trágicos que fariam muitos homens jogar a toalha. Em Le Mans, em 1955, a Mercedes do piloto Pierre Levet atingiu outro carro a 250 km por hora. Destroços voaram em direção à arquibancada, matando mais de 80 pessoas. Algumas semanas mais tarde, Alberto Ascari, lenda da Fórmula 1, morreu em um estranho acidente. As duas tragédias abalaram o mundo das corridas.
You know, for him, the death of all the drivers and all that, I think, you know, it just came with the territory. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it was unfortunate he got that, but did it ever actually stop him? No.
Sì, pronto? Cosa?
But what really set him sideways was the death of Dino.
Dino Ferrari, que cresceu e se tornou um respeitado engenheiro na fábrica do pai, morreu em 1956 de falência dos rins após uma longa batalha contra a esclerose múltipla. Esse foi o evento mais traumático na vida de Enzo.
But he was still determined. He had a vision which he stuck to. He didn't really waver much from that path. He triumphed when there was adversity, both family, personal, and he didn't let these hard times, he didn't let that deter him. He still kept his vision and his mission.
As coisas pioraram para Enzo. Em 1957, seu piloto Alfonso de Portago estava disputando a lendária corrida aberta de 1000 quilômetros na Itália, a Mille Miglia. Milhões de espectadores lotavam o acostamento da estrada. De repente, o carro de Portago atingiu um pneu de proteção. Em um piscar de olhos, seu carro avançou contra a plateia, matando, além dele mesmo, mais de 11 pessoas, inclusive 5 crianças. Em busca de um bode expiatório, o governo italiano culpou os pneus usados no carro de Portago. Enzo Ferrari foi acusado de homicídio culposo.
I mean, there was no merit to it. You know, bystanders were getting killed regularly. I mean, you would literally have what would happen. The race cars would come through a town, and everyone would line the roads. These were basically bad dirt roads. The car went off. You're taking out 5-10 people. It was a bloodbath out there.
Signore Ferrari, buongiorno.
Após uma investigação e 4 anos de disputas legais, as acusações foram retiradas e a relação de amor e ódio da Itália com Enzo Ferrari continuou.
Dice, comandatore, cosa dice?
Anytime he won a race, everything was forgiven, of course, and he was back to being a hero. He was bigger than the government. They resent, you imagine all the politicians and everything. Well, the fact was he was. Next to the Pope, you know, he was the #1 guy in Italy, and he let everybody know it. In Italy, Enzo Ferrari was and still is God.
Desde a primeira vitória em Silverstone, os resultados da Ferrari na Fórmula 1 nem sempre foram os melhores.